So there you go. Welcome at this HPE Discover Recap session. Last week, uh, 3 days and a half. Now, with of course being a virtual event, it took in total 4 days and a half with the different time zones, of course. So there were presentations in the EMEA, in the European, and also in the Asia time zone. Um, a lot of announcements. So what we're going to do is, well, take a look at the most important things, because by the way, you cannot touch everything that was announced, very specific updates as well. I think the most important announcements, I will give you an overview here now, because of maybe it might be interesting for your business here in our little Belgian country. Okay, just one reminder. 2019 HP Discover. At that moment, it was still a physical event. I was there, where HPE CEO Antonio Neri, he mentioned HPE will become an as a service company by 2022. Well, it's still 2021. He still has some time, but if you see over those yeah, 2 years, 2 years and a half already, that a lot got changed, where HP is indeed delivering still the typical products that you know that are out there: compute, storage, networking, a lot of software on top of it. But nevertheless, indeed, you will see as well with the announcements now that a lot of them are inspired by that as a service, because there's a lot of examples that were mentioned. Why the community, why our customers are going towards a as a service experience. Also think in your private, personal environment as well. For those who have the experience, where is the time that you wanted to see a video? You had to watch television and then wait until it came on television. And then there was that video rental service around the corner, where you could go for, how much was it? A certain amount of Belgian francs. And you could have that video cassette for 1, 2, 3 days. You could watch that video, most of the time in bad quality. And then you have to return that video cassette and then get another one. Rental services. And then of course the internet came, and now today everyone knows a story about Netflix. Okay, um, in a few years, I see this with friends of mine in the US. When I say, hey guys, it's 7 p.m., I want to go watch the news. Well, those guys, they say, what? Are you still have a cable connection with your TV? We only, and then you have all that publicity, right? We only watch on demand, because there are so many on demand services here in Belgium, in Europe, in the US, worldwide. And this is just one example, but take a look at cars. Take a look at audio, take a look at whatever services today are consumed as a service. Even the coffee shop around the corner, you can have an as a service. You pay one amount per month, and if you get one coffee or 20 coffees, they don't care. You just have that contract, that as a service for them. And so this is where we're going as well in IT, because everybody knows indeed the cloud. Now, meanwhile, we're not talking about the cloud anymore. There are so many clouds, so many public, private, managed cloud. The cloud is in experience. Right? It's how we want to consume IT, and I can decide if I can do it here or in a data center from someone else or at the edge. Because by the way, also at that event in 2019, it was the first time that HP CEO Antonio Neri mentioned as well something about the edge. And also I thought, the edge, what is, by the way, the edge, right? Well, today I think that everywhere in IT, every company today, all the competitors from HPE, all the analysts, all the IDCs and the Gartners, they're talking about the edge. Right. Well, that was the first time that I heard it, was indeed by Antonio Neri. Yeah. And so you'll see throughout this presentation that it is everywhere. A lot of announcements, a lot of them are inspired by that as a service. And so the second thing was indeed at 2021, the future is edge to cloud, because that's what we see. And by the way, it's not only HPE, but we see indeed that public cloud, the three biggest hyperscalers today on the market, you know well their names, yeah. If you see their offerings today as well, well, they embrace the edge as well. So those three hyperscalers today, they have products to bring the cloud experience in your data center, or even further behind your data center at the edge, because the edge actually is the place where your data is generated. We're not talking about users anymore behind a PC, behind a laptop, behind a smartphone. We're talking today, we had plenty of examples of what is the edge. It can be a mill. We had a really nice use case about the refinery, the oil industry. We had hospitals with doctors. We had windmills and trains. By the way, there was a very interesting, you still can go there, right? There was a really interesting use case where a Belgian person could present his company. It's a European leader in train transportation, a Belgian company, by the way. And so he was there presenting about how his company, who said, yeah, we drive with trains, right? And how they were using data from those trains. How long does it take to go there? What's the cost for that train? What about the maintenance? So how they were doing catching up, recovering that data, and then getting insights in that data, and then do something with it. And how it became indeed a European leader in train transportation, right? Belgian company. I was very proud hearing him talk over there. And that's the idea. That's the edge. By the way, another inspiring example, definitely for the Americans, is to prove where the data is generated, right? You need some calculations. Well, also there, really great story. It was also on my socials a few months ago, if you follow me. Uh, the ISS, right? That little mechano in space over there that is doing, how much is it, 34 times or something like that, circles around the Earth in 24 hours. Well, they generate data. Normally, they send it to the Earth. Then in the data centers on the Earth, they do all the calculations, and then they send the result back again over there. But they said, yeah, we have so many data, there's so many calculations to do. So what happened? Really great story. The HPE Spaceborne Computer. So it happened already 3 years ago. It came back, the first generation. Well, now HPE sent two servers, a ProLiant and an Apollo server. They send it, of course, with special casing up to the ISS. And so now what they do is, instead of sending the data here and then do some calculations on it and send it back, well, now the ISS is able to do their own calculations, big data analytics, and so on. Close to where the data is. So there you go. We're not talking only about a user with a smartphone. We're talking about trains, about self-driving cars, about the ISS, about whatever, where the data is generated. And so that's the future, edge to cloud and everything that happens in between. Okay. And I like it, and you have to understand it, of course, but that's the whole portfolio from HPE. And I think, honestly, I must admit that HPE is the only company on the market today that indeed has that vision, but also a portfolio that can deliver from the edge to the cloud, hardware, software, and the services. Okay? And that's the nice thing. That's why I like to be in the HPE team. Nevertheless, let's get started. Here are the highlights of HPE Discover 2021. Well, too many products, too many announcements. I picked for you the four most important ones because they are a great story. And maybe not today, but maybe in a month or in a year, definitely the products will be there, and it will impact your business towards your customers. Small, medium, big. yes, there will be an impact. Okay, I've seen that in the last years. I'm going to HP Discover already for more than 10 years, and I know the value of the announcements there because I know 6 months later or 1 year later, it is impacting my life. And if it impacts my life, well, it impacts your life as well, right? So that's the whole idea that you need to be aware of. Okay, cloud services experience. The cloud is everywhere. Well, how does the HPE cloud look like? What's that experience, and what is HPE giving you there? One of the important announcements in that cloud services picture is about the compute cloud console, which was an announcement that was made last week. Then we have a GreenLake Lighthouse project. So GreenLake is a name. By the way, GreenLake is not a product. That might be confusing. That's a feedback that I heard is, yeah, but what is GreenLake, by the way? Is it a product? Can I buy it? Well, actually, no. GreenLake is a name, a container, a namespace that that holds the as a service portfolio. Okay. So it is a service, it's a product, it's a little bit of everything you will see. Well, now in that GreenLake space, we have a new announcement being Lighthouse. Also a little bit of information on Lighthouse I have already in the presentation, because by the way, last week were the announcements. It's now that all the information, the practical information is coming in. So I picked even this morning, I picked all the latest information from HPE, from Seismic, from all the people that I know. And so I created this presentation for you. And by the way, now keep on following up all our update sessions in the upcoming months, because there will be much more coming, of course. And then finally, as well, there was a project. So Project Aurora is not a product. It's really a project that will fit into all those other offerings from HPE. And Project Aurora is something about security. Again, security from the edge to the cloud. Okay, because now the ISS will be quite hard to be attacked by people that wants to get ransom from you. But all those trains needs to be protected, all those end devices, those users, everything needs to be protected. So also there, security Project Aurora, I also have a little bit more information on there, because by the way, this is important to mention to your customers. Don't forget security. I think in the past months and year that we have too many, unfortunately, examples here in Belgium, even where companies got hijacked, where their data got encrypted and so on. And so this is where HPE will try to help you. Okay. You'll see more details at the end of the presentation. And so, like I said, yes, you will get a copy of the presentation later on for everyone who connected. First one, cloud services experience. Yeah. So what does HPE mean with that? Because HPE definitely doesn't want to become one of those big hyperscalers. Yeah. I think that they want to become in some kind of a way, not a hyper, but an infrascaler, right? What does that mean? Well, at the end, you have all those customers at the top. It can be an end user, it can be a developer, it can be a data scientist, it can be an IT administrator that needs to deliver a virtual machine with an application to a user. It can be microservices, the new style of development with Docker and Kubernetes and containers and so on. Well, independent, you have those customers who are using or who needs IT. Well, this is where HPE wants to deliver that cloud, that as a service experience. How are they going to do that? Well, there were already some offerings, the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. Well, now they want to add as well through GreenLake, because now this is where GreenLake comes in already. So not as a product, but we have GreenLake Central. So that exists today already for those GreenLake customers who are using as a service. So customers who are paying for a Nimble with DL380s or a Simplivity or a Synergy or whatever container platform, there are multiple offerings in GreenLake. Of course, they want to see how much they are consuming. They want to deploy, they want to activate new services, they want to stop services that they don't need anymore. Well, all this happens through HPE GreenLake Central. So HPE GreenLake Central is a portal where you log in and where you can consume services, just like you go to Microsoft Azure or to Amazon cloud services or Google. Well, GreenLake is to HPE, well, what Azure is for Microsoft, right? It's on-premises cloud service, because by the way, GreenLake, let it be clear, HPE doesn't want to become that hyperscaler. GreenLake is running on-premises. Okay, so when your customer says, I want to go to GreenLake, it's on-premises gear, compute, storage, networking, the software stack on top of it with the services, but it's running on premises. But your customer doesn't have that capex investment for the upcoming 5 years. No, they get an invoice per month, right? And that's it, right? If you want more information, by the way, about GreenLake, know that we have the past months, we organized already a few webinars already. So the presentation is there. By the way, the recording is as well there. At the end of the presentation, you will see that link, techdataevents.be. This is where you can find all our recordings. So more information about GreenLake in that other pre-recorded webinar. And if you want more information, hey, just contact us, right? But that's the whole idea. So we have GreenLake Central. Now, of course, to be able to connect to all that gear and so on, for that, we need also cloud-based management. And for those who attended my webinar 1 month ago, early May, there were some exciting announcements about storage, right? So storage with data center or data services cloud console, DSCC, and Alletra. So Alletra is the next generation storage platform using the DNA of Nimble arrays and Primera arrays, but it's cloud-defined storage. The management is inside the cloud. Well, that was what was announced 1 month ago. So data services cloud console to manage your storage platform. And so Alletra is the first platform today. We'll see what will happen with the Nimbles and the Primaras and the other storage platforms in the HPE portfolio. Connectivity, because that was, by the way, the announcement of 1 month ago, is that cloud platform, data services cloud console, isn't new. Yeah, that cloud platform, all from HPE, already supports tens of millions of devices worldwide. Yeah, so it is a proven architecture. And now you're going to say, hey, Bart, what are you talking about? Well, that connectivity platform here, that's Aruba Central. Yeah, and so Aruba Central is already managing those millions of network, wired and wireless devices for many years. Well, it's based on Aruba Central that HP created that DSCC, Data Services Cloud Console. But to manage storage, well, what is announced, a little bit more details in a minute in the presentation, is now Compute Cloud Console. Okay, so Compute Cloud Console is exactly the same thing. It's cloud-based management, but for compute. Yes. So what can you do? Well, you will be able to manage your customer A, B, C, D, because just like Aruba Central, there is multi-tenancy. So you can have all your customers within your compute cloud console, and you can see how good or how bad it goes with that DL380 or that whatever ProLiant server that is supported, because you will see in a minute, initially it's only the most popular models that will be supported at launch. By the way, it starts first in the US. After the summer, it will come to Europe, and then it will continue like that. And initially, it's the typical DL360s, DL380s, Gen 10. Yeah, of course, because it's important. It needs to be quite new. Gen 10 already exists for 3 years, so it's not that new. There is Gen 10 Plus, meanwhile, as well. By the way, you want more information about Gen 10 Plus? This was not announced because it existed already for more than a month now. Also, there we have a recording on and a presentation on the Gen 10 Plus announcements with the new Intel and the new AMD processor. So if you want more information about that one, please go take a look at that recording, available as well on techdataevents.be. But so now that gear, that compute, that hardware will be able to be managed as a service through a cloud console. Okay, so we can see how good, how bad it goes. And in the future, the whole idea is that you will be able as well to deploy to enable services, because with the SCC Data Services Cloud Console, you can create volumes and present them to service. Well, also with Compute Cloud Console, in the upcoming weeks, they will schedule the demos as well, because until now we didn't get a demo yet, just a mock-up of the interface. But the whole idea is that you can deploy workloads through GreenLake Central, and then it's those GreenLake Centrals that will communicate through those cloud consoles through GreenLake Central, or also for customers who don't use that GreenLake as a service, but that you as an HPE partner, that you can connect to those cloud consoles for connectivity, for compute, and for storage, and that you have a view and that you can control the on-premises infrastructure running at your customer. So that's the whole idea about this. Okay, so how does it look like? Well, the block architecture diagram is, of course, we have the GreenLake cloud platform with those common cloud services. I'm thinking about, for instance, metering. Of course, for cloud, if you want to pay for what you consume, of course, we need to measure what you're consuming. So in that common services, there are multiple services, like, for instance, the metering. There's also a single URL. I'm thinking about multi-tenancy, customer account management, device onboarding. Yeah, so technically you send that Alletra storage box to your customer, and then you can do the onboarding. Now with servers, it will be the same idea. You send that server to your customer, you plug in the ILO. That ILO will need to have, of course, cloud internet connectivity. But at that moment, from your location where you are, you can onboard that server, deploy that server, configure that server. So all that authentication and authorization, a link to InfoSight for the artificial intelligence management experience, well, all that is at common cloud services. But now what will be added, this is what was announced 1 month ago, the 4th of May. So we have that Data Ops Manager, yeah, with the new Alletra cloud native storage arrays. Well, now at the right, we have these compute cloud services. So these services are accessed through an API, and they will give you that functionality to manage the on-premise compute environment. Now at the top, this will be what you will see. We have the consoles themselves. So this is where you will come in. So your customer and yourself, you will get in through that compute and that data services cloud console. The user interface, that's the one that is customer facing. So the left one was there since a month. The first videos are available already. The first demos are available. When you go to the HPE demonstration portal, you have already a guided walkthrough through the data services cloud console. And I expect in the upcoming weeks that it will be exactly the same for the compute cloud console. Okay. Now, a little bit more details about that compute cloud console itself. The reason why, right? Well, it's all about simplifying the compute management with that seamless as a service experience. Independent if that server is running at the edge or in your data center or in the cloud. We want that one unified compute management when we're talking about physical servers, but also, for instance, virtual machines or even container platform services. So they want that one unified experience independent of where your application, your workload is running. We're not talking anymore about servers and storage. No, we're talking about workloads and everything that is underneath it. So you need to have access from anywhere, of course, through a secure way with the agility and the security of the cloud, of course. And yes, so we have those AI driven insights there as well, because I think it's quite obvious that, of course, in the background, info side is everywhere as well. And so that's the whole idea now. Of course, they started with the US, but nevertheless, if you have a customer that says, in Belgium, or in Holland, or maybe the north of Belgium, the south of Belgium, or whatever. With all the traffic jams, even yesterday, I got out to visit a customer. I was more time in my car than being actually in the meeting room. Oh, I love to go out to customers, knowing that I can do a lot of things at home as well, right? But that's the whole idea. We can do more and more from our own location, behind Zoom, for instance, but also now to manage infrastructure. I can do everything. Now I have a nimble array in my environment with InfoSight. I can see how good or how bad it goes on my smartphone. There's an application on InfoSight. So it makes my life easier. Why do you have to go on site if you can do it from a remote location? Right? So here it's exactly the same. Imagine in the US, you have so many states, you have to travel around taking planes or cars. Good luck in the US. To manage that environment. So they want to unify the compute management like they do with networking already, with Aruba Central, and since 1 month with data services as well. And so now you get that idea about the customer. In this case, it was in Colorado, where we had a little video where they were showing there are 6 devices. And so you can see that there is indeed a device that needs a critical security update, for instance. Right. And this is where what you can see. So you can see all your customers because it's multi-tenant. And so you can see all your customers and you can see how good or how bad it goes with that environment. But of course, in the backend, it's cloud-based, so it is scalable, it is flexible. It's per device that you add that there will be a subscription for that management. So about those operations, well, you see some numbers here. Indeed, it's about the efficiency. You can measure the uptime like they're doing now with Nimble already, where they can say, hey, we can guarantee a certain number of uptime that is delivered. Well, now by doing that measuring, so now you can see as well on compute if that service was available, yes or no. Also, the provisioning will be happening much more in a consistent way because you will be using templates for those workloads. By the way, you don't have to create them. Those templates, those workloads are already predefined by HPE. There's even a workload optimization guidance as well. Oh, you want to run an SQL, an Oracle, an SAP HANA, a VDI solution you want to run there. Well, HPE will be giving you those templates where you're going to be guided to guarantee a most optimal deployment as well for you. So it goes much further than just doing a firmware update. No, we go up to the application level that it is integrated. By the way, you will see in a minute in the presentation of what to expect there as well. But very important these days, and has an impact on, remember my last bullet point about Project Aurora is about security. Okay, because we have more and more connected devices at all those edge or data center or cloud locations. Don't forget security. Why not? Well, I'll give you an example with the Project Aurora announcement. But so this Compute Cloud Console will be helping you as well, because now that's why it needs to be Gen 10 servers, because we need ILO 5, because with ILO 5 we have that silicon root of trust in there, and so we have a better view of what's running on your server, for instance, through the firmwares as well, because this is proven. So the documents were there, how it is proven that today those hackers, they don't try to get in anymore through the endpoints, because we have a quite good endpoint protection, right? I think today that most of the emails that you receive with click here for a voucher of 50 euros, or click here to change your PIN account from your bank card because your bank card get blocked. Well, I hope today, I cross my finger, that you still don't click that link, of course. And this is the reason why those hackers are trying to get in through not the end users from the top of the stack, but now they try to get in through the application layer. How many Exchange servers were updated the last weeks and months by you? Of course, for those on-premises Exchange servers, not for the customers running in Office 365. But also we see more and more now, by the way, I have slides about that, where even Microsoft says, guys, watch out, we see more and more attacks on the firmware level. Okay, remember, firmware is that software running on the motherboard, yeah, of your server or your computer or your smartphone, or any device that has a CPU and memory that has firmware. Well, they try to get in there, because most of the time, now I'm advocate of the devil, it's technically perfectly possible to go to the hp.com website, or the Cisco or the Dell or the whatever, which company that is making motherboards. You can download that firmware, you can change the code of that firmware and add just a few lines in there. Hey, all the data that goes through this network card, send it to the original destination, but also send it to somewhere else. Guys, this is just a few lines of code. Well, that's the whole idea. Where with Gen 10 servers, we have that silicon root of trust where HPE can see, watch out, I see this firmware, but that firmware doesn't have the fingerprint of HPE. And how are we sure about that fingerprint? Because of course, we're using the root of trust. By the way, your Microsoft Secure Boot, VMware, all those operating systems, they do this. But the original truth, the original root of that fingerprint is somewhere probably in a TPM module or in a file. Yeah, because we have private and public keys that will be verified if you are indeed the user that I expect that you are. Now, of course, as long as it's in a file or in software or in a TPM module, well, at that moment, through an API, through software, I can modify that key and this firmware as well. And so I can act, I can present myself as being HPE, not being HPE at that moment in time. Okay, I just have to put on a shirt with that green element on it, and everybody thinks that I work from HPE, which in case it's not true, right? Well, this is where HPE said we need a solution with silicon root of trust. Now, that original fingerprint that says we are HPE is not somewhere written through software on a component. No, it is in the silicon, it's on a chip in the hardware. And as far as we know, it is quite hard, unless you are an expert with an iron and you start to get soldering on that motherboard. Technically, guys, it's not possible to modify the chip because you don't even know where that original fingerprint is. But this is what HP does already with Gen 10 Silicon Root of Trust. I am telling you already for more than 2 years, guys, this is important. And today, I don't know any HP partner here in Belgium that has sold a ProLiant server that he won a deal thanks to Silicon Root of Trust. And that's a pity, because this is a major breakthrough compared to all our competitors in the market. They don't have that Silicon Root of Trust. They have Root of Trust, but not Silicon Root of Trust. Okay? And so it's that thing with Silicon Root of Trust. Your server, when you power on your ProLiant Gen 10 server, it will check the firmware of that motherboard and of that RAID controller and that network card and all those other components that are running firmware. And they will check the fingerprint of that firmware. And when they see, yep, you are HPE, we trust you, at that moment it will power on the server. If you succeed to install a firmware update on that server, but with some malicious code in there, and don't say that it happens, because it happens. I have a lot of use cases of publicly known things that happened, yeah, where the firmware got hit, and so that server was running for months with that malicious firmware. And then you have to say, hey, we need some kind of an antivirus scanner, but then for firmwares, well, guys, in Gen 10 servers, it's there, right? Every Gen 10 server, when you power on, it will check the firmware, but then, yeah, your server stays running for months. Okay, in the past, a Windows server, we rebooted that server every week or every month to free up memory. But today, your VMware server, I know VMware servers that are running for more than a year without a reboot, which is a good thing, of course. At the other hand, it can be that that firmware is running for more than a year and you didn't notice. Well, this is why in Gen 10 as well. And if you don't believe me, if you want to see this, I will give you a demo. Call me, I'll show it to you. That you can schedule it manually or every 24 hours. Your ProLiant Gen 10 or Gen 10 Plus server is scanning the firmware on demand of your motherboard. And if it detects that that firmware got hijacked, that there's malicious code in there, you will get an alert and it will shut down that server, because HPE cannot guarantee that your operating system running on top of it is safe. Now, this is something that's already there for more than 2 years, but now we get more and more insights. So what will be happening now in ILO with the latest updates from ILO? So you will see not from one server, but from your complete environment here at the edge or in your data center, wherever you have these servers, these HPE servers running, well, you will get those insights at which software version that they are running on the hardware level, but also on the operating system level. And the whole idea, this is what Project Aurora is about, the complete stack, that you have insights if you're running in a secure or not secure way. And so there is that proactive resolution. Okay, it's self-healing, because what does it do? It monitors permanently. Okay, this is safe firmware, or this is not trusted firmware. It will reboot that server, but it will go back to the previous version. Yeah, the previous version, which was at that moment before that malicious person updated, changed that firmware. Well, at that moment, we go to the previous version, which is being considered as being secure. If that one is not secure, we go back to the previous version. And so we can go back completely to the first firmware that came out of the factory, because at least that one is secure, right? Well, there you go. So those insights are very important. And this is why a Gen 8 and a G7 and a G6 server will never be supported, because we need ILO 5, we need that Silicon Root of Trust, we need that visibility on all those firmwares, all that software that is running inside your compute and storage and networking. Okay, so that's the whole idea, and this is the start, right? And so on that firmware management experience, this was the first example that we saw, is indeed that you get notifications. Notifications on, for instance, not only the firmware, but also the operating systems on top of it. Hey, did you know that there's a new VMware update or a new Linux vulnerability that is known? So we advise you that on those servers, for those customers, you're running not secure, out of date software versions. So click our button on the support portal, you will get all the information, and then through cloud compute cloud console, you can even update that environment as well. Okay. So by the way, it's not mandatory. You still can, you don't have to get that compute cloud console subscription. By the way, we have no idea how it will be invoiced. Pricing, don't ask me about pricing. There's nothing about pricing yet of how much that it will cost, because at the end, what I heard is that technically it doesn't cost a thing. It's part of the support experience. But then, yeah, how much will cost the support experience? Well, we don't have the details yet. This is information that will be released the upcoming weeks. So please stay tuned, but know what's coming. Okay, but that, because that's the cloud experience. So from one portal, HPE will tell you you're running up to date, you're doing a good job, or you will get proactive notifications, just like with Nimble support. Nimble users, they love Nimble because of their fantastic support. Well, HPE wants to give you that same experience now on the compute level. Okay, so this is what will be happening. So not only for HP, but also everything running on top of it, because we will have those insights as well, thanks to, for instance, InfoSight. Remember, with Nimble, with Alletra, with Primera, we have those cross-stack analytics. We can go from the VM all the way down up to the hardware. Okay. Also, of course, you can select devices. Yes, those devices I want. Other devices, no, because they're too old or they will be decommissioned and so on. But for all the devices that are under management, you can review those devices and you will get those notifications. And then the nice thing is indeed that you can also deploy updates. Yeah. So, of course, initially only the software components at HPE, but the idea is that later on, but then I'm talking about, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 years further down the road, is that that orchestration will go higher up, even up to the application and the workload level on top of it. Definitely when you're going to the complete Green Lake Central experience, well, at that moment you will see workloads. You don't see components, and then HP will take care of everything anyway, right? But that's the whole idea. They needed those cloud consoles. They had for networking. Recently, they added for storage, but now as well they need for compute, because they need to have that visibility across that complete stack. Okay, so as soon as I have access, because of course I asked for demo access to give you, to show you and so on, well, it will take a few weeks, it will take some time, and now of course we have those holidays as well. But one day, as soon as it's there, after the holidays, we will organize update sessions with more details about data services data services cloud console, and then as well the compute cloud consoles. So like I said, initially it's only the Gen 10 and the Gen 10 plus servers, but that's gear from that's already 3 years that it is available. And so they will start with the most popular servers, and then they will add the Synergies and the Apollos and all those other devices as well. And so the whole idea is that independent of which data center or which edge that you are, that you can access any device from anywhere through one console. And the whole idea at the end is you go to, I don't know what URL it will be, cloud.hpe.com or cloudconsole.hpe.com. We'll see in the future. But at that moment, you will see your networking, your compute, your storage just from one cloudy user interface, and then probably through an app on your phone as well. And so practically, this is the positioning, by the way, because I am an on-premises infrastructure person. And so I said, hey, but what about OneView? Because OneView does the same thing. I have multiple ILOs, and then with OneView, I get OneView on all those environments, right? For multi-server management. Well, it stays there. So OneView is not going away. I thought, okay, this is OneView in the cloud, right? Well, yes and no. You will get that same experience for multi-server management in the cloud together with InfoSight, because InfoSight is there for your analytics, for your servers and your storage. And now networking is also starting with their own AI platform as well. But that's the cloud experience. But know that one view will keep on existing, at least for the upcoming years now. So there's still a roadmap for on-premises management for those customers who don't want cloud-based management, for instance. And so one view is indeed there for the environment, for the large data centers, not really for the edge. Yeah, for the edge, we will be using ILO or ILO amplifier pack, for instance. But there we don't have one view yet. Where you see that Compute Cloud Console is there for any environment. Okay, and yeah, to recap, ILO is the foundation of everything. Okay, so that's why we need ILO 5. This is why we need Gen 10 and Gen 10 plus servers. Okay, now what's announced? By the way, this is confidential. This is for HPE partners. There is no commitment of that next and that future. So don't talk about this, by the way. You're under NDA being an HPE partner. So don't announce this at your customer environment, because there's no commitment at all. That next, that can be next month, but that can be next year as well. And that future can be in 2 months, but that can be in 2 years as well. Okay, but this is the roadmap of where Compute Cloud Console is going. Okay, so we have our life cycle automation. So that will be available today in the US. Okay, and so as you can see, the next one is Europe, because by the way, we need, yeah, this is a cloud platform. So, and with GDPR, we Europe doesn't like that we're using a cloud console in the US. So initially it's running in US West. And so the next iteration, indeed, it will be running in Frankfurt data centers. So at that moment, we should be okay as well for the European customers as well. Initially, the typical DL300 series, most popular servers, then they will add more servers, and then later they will add more servers like the Edge Lines, the Synergy, the Superdome Flexes, and so on. Okay, so we have that Cloud Innovation Portal, so a single entry portal, commoncloud.hpe.com, and this is where you can set up your security, your role-based access, the device onboarding with the ILO-based activation, just by the way, like Alletra is doing. If you want to get started with an Alletra storage device, 6,000 or 9,000, you need to activate that device through that DSCC Data Services Cloud Console. Okay, then what will happen later, staged and activation of firmware updates. So you don't have to go to your customer anymore. You can do it just in a staged way from your own office at home. Yeah, and so you can stage that firmware and then say, you know what, this evening at 10 p.m. reboot that server, for instance. Yeah, also automated operating system installations. Also there, this will be happening automatically for you, multi-factor authentication, bulk adding devices. Like I said, you don't just ship that server to your customer, plug in that ILO with internet connectivity, and you're good to go. You can do your job from anywhere. Okay. And then later on, the whole idea, because hey, this is the proof that this is based on Aruba Central. Well, Aruba Central today supports ZTP zero touch provisioning, right? You just send that network switch or that access point, you ship it to your customer, they plug it in the network, and you can configure all those wireless SSIDs and security and so on. You can configure it from your smartphone or from your PC at home. That's zero touch provisioning, the automated onboarding. Well, this is what will be coming as well with servers and with storage. Okay, so today we're talking about that Compute Cloud Console and storage Cloud Console and networking Cloud Console. Well, my opinion there at the end is, in a few years, we don't have all those consoles anymore. That was one of the remarks as well. Don't we have too many consoles? And they said, yeah, guys, this is just a start, right? We just give you an idea. Now we're talking storage. Now we're talking compute. Now we're talking networking. But you'll see in a few years, it's just IT. I go in there, I need a workload, and that workload orchestration will take care of the storage and the compute and the networking. Okay, that's the whole idea. And that's, by the way, like I said, this is what Azure and Amazon and Google is doing. At the end, you have one entry portal for you as a consumer. But believe me, at the back, at Amazon, they have hundreds of consoles, right? Of portals to tweak, to configure things. Well, that's the whole idea here as well. Okay? Well, that's Compute Cloud Console. Like I said, as soon as it's possible to give you demos to show you how it looks like, well, stay in touch. Probably in September, October timeframe. Definitely, we will be able to show you how it actually will look like. So also today, don't start. I know that you want to start selling this, but technically it's not possible yet, of course, because yeah, it's US only today. And so we need to wait a little bit longer until that instance is enabled in the Frankfurt cloud data centers, right? So we're almost there. The third big announcement was a Green Lake Lighthouse. Now, what is Lighthouse? We have those green lakes, and I made a little joke about it. Yeah, you need a light to guide you on all those green lakes. Well, they paid attention to me, and they said, we're going to launch HPE Green Lake Lighthouse, right? So what are we going to do there? We have that cloud native experience with Green Lake, right? So we have that centralized control. Just told you about Green Lake Central with all those consoles behind it. We need that integrated platform because we want to deliver you not gear, but we want to give you indeed a platform where you can run workloads, just like all those hyperscalers are doing. You want to run VDI, no problem. This is a VDI solution. You want to run SAP, no problem. Here's SAP platform. You want containers, Docker, Kubernetes, well, there you go. We have our container platform. Yeah, tell me the workload and we will deliver that to you. And that's the vision of where HPE said with GreenLake, from edge to cloud, we can deliver you that experience. Because now, where is Lighthouse then? Because technically I said, this existed already. Yeah, technically it was already there. They just combined it now behind one name. So we have our enterprise infrastructure. So we have our compute, we have our storage, we have our networking. And now on top of that, we have our software. We have Ezmeral software. And by the way, if you want to know more about Ezmeral, yes, we already have a recording. We did a webinar specifically on Ezmeral. What's in Ezmeral? For instance, that Ezmeral container platform, right? We have the Ezmeral storage data fabric. These were all acquisitions from Blue Data and Mapr. If you want to know more information about that, I think honestly that is quite cool. That Ezmeral software with that Ezmeral container platform. Well, now what they will combine is, because we have the gear, we have the software on top of it. Well, now they said, we're going to put it in one offering. And so that's what's Lighthouse. Okay. And for those who are following HPE already a long time, who remembers converged systems? So not HCI, not hyper-converged, but converged systems. Well, more than 10 years ago, HPE launched HPE Converged Systems 300, 500, and 700. What was it? It was hardware with software on top of it. Well, at that moment, it was VMware. Yeah, it was all about VMs, infrastructure as a service. Well, at that moment, that's what converged systems was and still is. Well, today, the stack of software has grown now with all the containers and the SAPs and the VDIs and so on as well within the Ezmeral portfolio. But that's Lighthouse, by the way. Okay, and that Lighthouse, you will see in a minute, there are modules, so you can build yourself your Lighthouse at the Green Lake, because then Green Lake is as a service. If your customer wants to pay per month and he doesn't want to pay for the upcoming 5 years in CapEx, well, at that moment, you're going to use the GreenLake experience with the Lighthouse. And so the Lighthouse is based on modules which you can tune, which you can size for the edge, for the data center, for the colo, and for the cloud as well. So that's the whole idea, how Lighthouse will work. So what you need to do, we have to make a plan. That's something typically that we're going to do together, of course. Yeah, it will be CEO, CIO, CFO, the line of business with you, the HPE partner. You're going to define that workload list. And of course, we need to size as well how many capacity, how many resources that you will need. We're going to make that planning together. It's based on a list of questions that you need to ask. Then we're going to configure that Lighthouse. And like I said, we have modules. I have an example on the next slide about those modules. But you're going to combine your Lighthouse with gear and with software to the specific needs of that customer. And then you're going to deploy it. Now you can deploy it at the edge, in your data center, in the colo, in the cloud, wherever, yeah, in the desired location, yeah. And so you're going to enable those modules of compute, storage, networking, and software. And how you going to deploy that one? Yeah, remember previous module, GreenLake Central, zero touch provisioning, the onboarding, everything will be happening automatically through the cloud. You just ship those modules with CPU and memory and storage and you cable it up. It can be even done by HPE GreenLake Central services. And so you power on the modules that you need to deploy your workload. And then everything will be operated, will be managed, will be maintained, of course, through HPE GreenLake Cloud Services, which is that one unified experience, a cloud-based platform that is using those blueprints, those templates of those workloads where you're going to configure and consume everything. And by the way, it's also in that portal where you can see per day, per month, per year, how much consumption, how many resources that you're using. And based on that, then you can do your billing, your cross charging. Right. So that's the whole idea about how Lighthouse will work. And so with Lighthouse, like I said, we have modules. So we have compute modules, we have general purpose modules. So probably that will be based on DL380s, DL360s, and so on. We have compute optimized modules with more compute in there. I'm thinking about AMD based systems with a lot of cores in there. I'm thinking about high performance computing, HPC devices, Apollo, for instance. And we have also memory optimized modules for companies who wants to run workloads that need a lot of memory, all the analytics, the AI, the machine learning, and so on. Well, also there, HPE has already optimized platforms. I'm thinking about SD Flex, Superdome Flex, and so on. So we have a lot of modules that you just can buy or use as a service, right? Then for storage, we have block storage, but cost optimized and performance optimized. So that will be SSD and SAS compared to NVMe storage, right? So again, just take the storage modules that you need with the specifications that you need. Thinking about capacity and latency for storage. We need a management module. There will be always a gateway that needs to be installed. I asked a question, is this virtual or physical? I didn't get an answer yet. I'll keep you posted on that one. But we need that gateway functionality that will act as a proxy between the public cloud and your gear at the edge or in the data center, of course, right? Then we have the networking. Also there in networking, we have a lot of switches, leaf switches, spine switches, data center core switches, and so on. So there will be a few modules available as well. And then, of course, you need a rack, the physical gear, you need a rack, a chassis, a PDU, the cabling. So also there as well, there will be modules. And so this is how you're going to create you yourself a Lighthouse. Yeah, so for instance, what do we see here? I see my production network, the top of rack switches with the management network. I have here my management environment. So you still need always 1, 2, 3 servers for your management layer. And then we have our storage blocks and we have our compute blocks. So this is where your actual workload will be running. Okay, and so I see a Nimble, I see an Alletra, I see DL360s. Probably it can be SimpliVity as well. It's just gear, right? But we have here on my management stack, I have that metering software, I have that gateway that is delivering all those secure communications, right? And so now it's quite modular. If you want to add more compute, if you want to add more storage, you want to be running container as a service, because by the way, what was announced is that at launch, there will be modules for VM as a service and containers as a service. So these are the modules that will be available quite soon. Yeah, in the upcoming weeks, these modules will become available so that you can deliver virtual machine as a service and containers as a service. And by the way, for those who are into the cloud, okay, so you also have those hyperscalers who are delivering as well Azure on premises. Okay, how is it called? Does it ring a bell? Azure Stack HCI is the Azure experience in your data center. We have Google on premises. That's Google Anthos, right? Amazon has AWS Outpost. Well, Outpost is Amazon gear on premises in your data center, right? Well, this is actually then what Lighthouse is. Yeah. But this is independent of any hyperscaler. It is your gear with your interface, with your workload. So you don't have to follow the Amazon or the Google or the Azure ecosystem and way of working and provisioning. That's good, but at that moment you're focusing on one hyperscaler. Well, now what you can do with this is it's exactly the same thing, right? But it's your gear, it's running on premises, you pay per month with GreenLake. It is very modular. So tell me what you need and they will add components. You can do that. The HPE can do that. And you pay per month because everything is maintained under that GreenLake central console. And now, of course, after some time, they will be adding multiple workloads. Yeah, I'm thinking about VDI as a service, SAP as a service, what other workloads that you can imagine are being planned as well. But that will be announced after the summer timeframe. Okay, so this is the complete picture finally. Okay, because this is the only slide that I found that puts everything together. Okay, so we have here GreenLake Lighthouse, where we have our compute, our storage, our networking, right? We have our software on top of it. Now let it be bare metal applications, virtual machines, or containers will run on your infrastructure on those modules. And those modules will be defined based on the workloads. So HPE will deliver blueprints for those workloads. And then the modules will define the capacity. And the combination of those two will be, of course, controlled, will be metered, will be orchestrated through GreenLake Central. Okay, so we have the control plane, the orchestration is there, all the security and the compliancy will be defined within that one user interface. And then, of course, the services that you will be enabling by default at launch will be virtual machines and containers. But here is a list of other cloud services that are announced or being announced. For instance, as well, there were plenty of GreenLake announcements for Splunk, for Spark, for telco, for 5G. There was also for hospitals, electronic health. So also there, HPE has those blueprints now available as a service. Okay, so this is where it's going. This is just to give you an idea. So if you have customers who are specifically in financial payments or telco 5G, yes, HP is doing a lot really in 5G deployments. Machine learning, HPC, SAP, I mentioned, VDI, all workloads that are popular, are in demand today. Well, if you hear those requirements, well, think about HPE, and we can help you with giving you a solution for these workloads. Okay. Now, okay, final slides. We had the first three one, the cloud experience. We had the compute cloud console being announced. Then we had GreenLake Lighthouse, giving you that on-premises complete cloud solution. Now, there's one thing. It's not a product, by the way. Let this be clear. Aurora is not a product, it's a project. Zero Trust Architecture, which is coming as well from Aruba, from the networking side. They are working towards that Zero Trust Architecture. With Gen 10, I mentioned before about how ILO 5, that silicon root of trust, is helping you on the compute layer. Well, with Project Aurora, HPE says we want a framework where we can guarantee that security, again, from edge to cloud. Okay, because there's that saying that says the strength of a chain is the strength of the weakest link. Okay, this is what those hackers, by the way, are doing. They are looking for the weakest link. One password that was found somewhere from a long time ago that we forgot to change. Okay, and so this is where Project Aurora, so this template, this picture is given to any person inside HPE in development. Development of hardware, development of software, development of solutions. Yeah, and so in the compute team, here, infrastructure. Okay, we have a solution there already. Okay, for that vulnerable firmware, for those BIOS boot kits, we have silicon root of trust in my ProLiant server. Well, now this is that we're going to use across, of course, this is the foundation on the hardware side of, for instance, a Lighthouse implementation. There's a second thing about supply chain. Also here, HPE can guarantee that the hardware that is built in an HPE solution is built by HPE, and that the supply chain is end-to-end completely trusted. Why is this important? I have a few articles, documented, proven attacks that were used. I'm thinking about a fruit company. Yeah, you know that fruit company that at one moment in time, they had servers, very expensive servers, but nevertheless, they had servers. And if you cannot find, just Google it. If you cannot find it, on their motherboards, they were using a component, a BMC, the ILO, yeah, board management chip, yeah, or the base foundation management controller. So the ILO of their server for remote management on their server, they bought it from an external company, third-party company somewhere in Asia. And so the fruit company, they found out that in that chip, there were lines of codes in there that were not documented and delivered by the supplier. And they said, okay, this is not what we trusted you, but now with this additional code, so there were some backdoors in there that were not documented. So Apple, they had to, they stopped their contract with that company. Probably heard about them, Supermicro. Just Google it, Supermicro Apple. There was some funny things. Supermicro had to um, fire a lot of people because they lost a big contract. And so you know what happened with Apple servers meanwhile as well. But nevertheless, this is just one example. I have oh so many other examples available today of that supply chain where external people try to get in. Okay. Give you another idea. Everybody knows Tesla, and where there are stories where indeed people working for Tesla were contacted by, was it Russia or Asia? Not important, but they were contacted by people to install firmware, to install software on a PC in the factory. Yeah, this is all documented. This is all true. This is all what happened. And fortunately for Elon Musk, that person that is working for him, he didn't do it. He gave that information all the way up, and now, of course, it's publicly available. So that's why that supply chain is also important. Well, HPE can guarantee that the gear is built in the US or that it's built in Europe, and so that all the components on that motherboard are trusted through the supply chain, because most of them are all built by HPE. And so we have, of course, that integration with the silicon root of trust as well. Well, now what is Project Aurora? Well, we're going to go all the way up to the operating system, to the hypervisor, to the platform, the Docker container platform, and then all the workloads on top of it. So this is an ongoing project. This is not a product, but HPE will be able to guarantee you that HPE will detect that you are running software that is not trusted. Okay, on top of that HPE gear. Okay, and this is the whole idea, because this is difficult, right? You need to do this on the edge. You need to do this on your data center. You'd have to do this on your public cloud environment. Yeah. So everywhere you need to think about security, because you don't want that the workload or the platform or the operating system or the infra or the supply chain is that weakest link. You don't want that. You don't want to go into the national press because your company got hijacked. And so this is what Project Aurora actually is. We want that zero trust, or HPE wants that zero trust security from the silicon up to the cloud, everywhere. And they want every layer to be able to trust each other. And we will not power on that operating system if the infrastructure is not okay. And we will not allow that the platform, the container platform, will be running if the underlying software, the Linux or the VMware, is not trusted, and so on and so on. And so this is an ongoing project. This is a strategy, right? This is a strategy. So ILO will be checking the operating system. ILO will be checking as well every few minutes, by the way. They're checking that operating system to see if everything is okay or not, that it was rebooted with other code running, and so on. Okay, so this is not something that you can sell as such, but this is something that you can take with you when you're going to talk with your customers, because there you go. So remember this picture that I showed you with all the services and components that HPE has, where we're going with that edge to cloud as a service experience. Well, now you will see that Project Aurora is everywhere. Okay, so all the product managers, all the developers, they need to be aware of that Project Aurora. So they don't want to have unauthorized bootloaders, unauthorized kernels, unauthorized operating system executables that get changed, unauthorized middleware that is running, and so on. Okay, by the way, there is a website on Project Aurora that gives you more background information. There was one practical use case. Which one was it again? Grororup is a they call it the Swiss knife of Linux hackers. So if you want to hack Linux platforms, well, Grororup is a very popular platform that is used for do malware attacks. And there was one specific use case where a oil refinery was attacked by they found out it was a Russian um, um, community that were attacking indeed that refinery with that Aurora software. And so this is something where HPE will be able to help you that this will not happen. But of course, the foundation is the most important, but that's what HPE is giving you already with that supply chain trust, and also the infrastructure with Silicon Root of Trust. And now the project goes all the way up into the complete stack of software and workloads running on top of it. So stay tuned with that Project Aurora. I will keep on referencing to that in all our upcoming seminars, webinars that we organize to keep you updated. But I think this is a unique value where a company like HPE clearly says, for us, security is key. Security is everywhere. And this is something that you can take into account when you're competing with other products on the market, of course, because it's built in the hardware from the ground up. Okay, well, more to come about that, definitely, for sure. This is, for me at least, the most important one. So we had that cloud services experience thanks to the Compute Cloud Console. We have then Lighthouse, which is a modular approach to be able to make it easier to sell cloud on premises or in the edge to your customers. And then Project Aurora, which is, I think, a very important one. And by the way, this afternoon, I'm going to watch more videos on demand at the HPE Discover portal on Project Aurora to get even more insights about that one. Well, thank you very much. If you have more questions about this or about other opportunities with HPE, of course, here's our email address, here's our phone number. This is our team. We're very proud that we have that big HPE team that is supporting you with all your questions, of course. So I still have some time. I'm 10 minutes even before the end of the session. So thank you very much. If you have any questions whatsoever, please put it in the Q&A window. I will stay here available for you. Thank you very much. Stay safe and have great holidays. Of course, enjoy that time out, but of course, by staying safe. And then I hope to see you very soon, probably in the September timeframe, for new dates with more exciting announcements about HPE products, solutions, offerings for you to make you even better, a more intelligent, more exciting HPE partner towards your customers. So thank you very much. I'll stop the recording here as well. We will share the